testimony, have their statement sworn by a justice of the peace, I believe. And at that point, making the witness unavailable for whatever reason to testify, killing the witness is not beneficial to the defendant's case because the statement is admissible and you can't cross-examine a recorded statement. It just is. You can't try to use lines of questionings to make the statement's authenticity seem less than credible. But I don't know if she reached that step in this case. And I don't know what this might mean, because crime tends to be a copycat thing, especially if it appears. We don't actually need to have this happen in reality. All we need is for it to appear that two people were accused of something, killed their accuser, and it went away. And then in the minds of criminals, this will be seen as a legitimate tactic that can work because it's been done in public, in full view of the press. All the press could do is report on it. So now the question is, what will be done to prevent situations like these? Because again, this is not gangsters killing gangsters. I am fed up of that excuse and I'm not accepting it anymore. 13-year-old girl who apparently was a victim. Now we know gangsters recruited young, but still. And yes, I understand it's active investigation, but the irony, of course, is if we don't hear anything more, this could cause some people to think, hey, you know, this might work. And who knows with our escalating crime rates, how far this could go, because the detection rate out of 612 odd murders last year, we might have gotten legitimate suspects for 75. Not even 1 in 6, right? That's much better than 50-50 odds. That's what? Less than 12%? Something like maybe 11%. So a group of people who live by the gun and don't expect to live past 25, those are great odds. Remember, they think they have a 100% chance to not live past their mid-20s. Everything else is just gravy after that. That's the type of mentality. They've put themselves in a corner. They feel as though they have nothing to lose. They don't realize how much more there is to life. Those are great odds. So there's multiple implications in this. There's multiple tragedies. But this is not the first time that there have been a situation where the course of justice has been perverted by an act of murder. And I do wonder to what extent politicians of either side, what have they done to really speak out about these things, to speak out about those who have been assassinated within the criminal justice system, trying to do the right thing. It's not just the police, you know. You swim against the current, you'll drown. That is the type of society we have right now. And I think we underestimate how widespread it is. And at some point, you might be a victim, you might want justice. It might not have to be something like a murder, but it might be something that you need to see justice done. Don't be surprised if you don't get it. All right. Moving on to the next story. Try to be quick. I question the Defense Force, what it does, what is its mission, how effective is it, who holds it accountable. Well, remember there was a case where a gun went missing. Now, the chief of the defense force, he has apparently lost 2 lawsuits over punishments that were doled out from the 2 men involved in the missing gun case. One was the duty storeman, one was the orderly officer. The one who was the duty storeman, a High Court judge ruled in favor of the Lance Corporal, whose rank was retroactively reduced. And I believe he was, well, right. No, there was also, and his pay was docked, and the judge basically said, there's no evidence or reasoning behind this. And similarly, the orderly officer filed a similar lawsuit when his rank was reduced, and the justice of that case held that even if the chief of the defense staff's decision to revert his rank was valid, it should have returned him after a 6-month period, which would not have affected his prospects for promotion. Now, without full and frank disclosure by the CDS on decision-making process, the only evidence the court had before it was the recommendation to reduce his rank, this is the second person's rank, was made by others not delegated with any decision-making power, as he seemed to have relied on recommendations of others. Now I question if the defense force hierarchy even knows how to hold its own members accountable. What is due process? What is fair? What is just? It seems as though they're ill-prepared to handle something such as this, which should be spelled out chapter and verse in some sort of code of military justice. If you watch a lot of movies, what they have in America, you would think they would have regulations that will say X, Y, and Z, this is what must be done. Chief of the Defense Force seemed to have relied recommendations of others. I could understand if it was legal advice. I would think that the judge would be able to differentiate between people without any decision-making power and legal advice. The fact that the Chief of the Defense Force decision-making has been questioned by 2 judges over this one incident. There's a lot more questions with regards to, well, how is the defense force run then? What sort of laissez-faire attitude is this looking like? And it goes back to my question with regards to what is even the purpose of the 1st and 2nd Battalion? If I believe the 3rd Battalion is the support battalion, which engages in a lot of engineering, construction, disaster relief work. What is the point of the other 2 battalions? What is the point of the Coast Guard? What is the point of the Air Guard? Have we seen helicopter patrols, helicopter medical evacuations, helicopter search and rescue? I mean, at least we haven't seen this Prime Minister flying a helicopter back and forth between Trinidad and Tobago. But that's just a consolation prize. So I'll leave that there because of time. Before we get into this next story, let's take the break, because it's just the latest chapter in an ongoing saga which is taking far too long. And one would question, you know, even what does this even mean with regards to the course of justice? And like the first story, it has a lot of implications of what are the signals it sends. But let's take a break. When we come back, I'll get into the other stories of the Daily Review.
The Minister of Finance will present the national budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 on Monday, 2nd October. What will be done to lift our economy? Which sectors will get priority? Will there be an increase in social expenditure? Join host Keaton Shah and political analyst Derek Ramsamouch on AM Prime as we dissect and analyze fiscal year 2022-2023 and examine our financial future. And join WESN for its budget panel debate from 6:30 p.m. on Monday, 2nd October, where we engage in constructive conversations with the people that matter. The #1 morning show, AM Prime, Mondays to Fridays, 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
You gave us the inspiration to be first. We gave you the solutions that put you first. You walked with us side by side, and we continued to serve you with pride. First Citizen celebrates with you 30 years of achieving dreams, shaping success stories, and painting brighter futures together. And together, we'll accomplish so much more. First Citizens, together, 30 and beyond.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And a reminder, don't miss our analysis panel, our panel's analysis of the budget presentation this afternoon on WESN. That'll be 6:30 tonight. Of course, you'll get my opinion later on in the week, but we have a lot of experts from different fields who will give their take on a lot of technical matters, try to put things in perspective with regards to the budget this evening. Of course, budget will be on at about 1 p.m. Now, and she kind of low this morning because we started off with a heavy story there. Another minor was murdered. This time, potentially she was accusing people of a crime, of a criminal act against her. She potentially is the victim of a crime. Technically, it's not proven, hence my language. So I'm the guy that's been talking about children being killed, minors being killed for what? I feel it's almost a year now. And again, I don't know if people are going to care because, well, it's just one more onto the fire. Meanwhile, and she's kind of low, so I'll try and raise it up a little bit. The Piarco civil matter in Miami, we got a judgment against Mr. Ferguson, and then the big thing was disclosure. Because of course now disclosure will then go into the next step in how we get or claim the money. And there's a new hold up. Now Mr. Ferguson is basically saying, well, I don't want to incriminate myself in any potential criminal matters, so I cannot answer these questions that have been asked to me about my financials, because that might incriminate me in criminal courts. It's a hell of a defense. We have to wait and see how the American courts will respond, how the American judge will respond. On one hand, I actually do sort of understand in a very layman's way the legal ramifications where you don't want backdoor channels to bypass individuals' rights. That's technically not fair. The flip side is this, I would imagine, is not necessarily like a backdoor channel attempt to get such information. This is a legitimate civil claim that has serious ramifications. And, you know, I wonder, since I'm not a lawyer, much less an American lawyer, so I don't know how exactly that will work out, you know, but it was said in one of the news reports on this story that, look, at the end of the day, this is the process on how damages are you know, given to an awardee, a successful plaintiff. The defendant now who lost the case, or someone in that sort of position, would have to declare their assets or answer certain questions in order for the money to be recouped. Because I believe the court will enforce its judgment, and you don't necessarily want the court to just willy-nilly, arbitrarily decide how it's going to enforce its judgment and make assumptions and make declarations without understanding things. So you will declare. You know, the court just says, well, sell your house, so we'll claim your house, we'll claim your car, we'll sell it out. No, you'll declare things, hopefully to try to ensure that the process doesn't turn into, you know, some kind of wild, wild west situation when the judge just does whatever they want. But we'll see how that goes. We wait again on the courts. I mean, we were kind of waiting just to see how this step would go. To some extent, Mr. Ferguson did not disappoint. It's a hell of a defense. I don't want to incriminate myself. Therefore, I cannot cooperate with this process. That's a hell of a defense. I don't know that. The question would be, to what extent would his line of defense actually harm him in any further criminal matters? I don't know for sure. That's the other thing. So I do wonder exactly who gave him that advice, but I'll leave that there. We do want to finish off the stories on the review, because I definitely want to get into this. And Nikon, apparently, it's the gift that keeps on giving. As Karen says, launched in the press with much fanfare and the ribbon cutting ceremony, blah, 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 which happened, I believe, maybe a month or two before the first accident, and big fanfare about how great this project is in the press. Not a lot of details with regards to what the project actually is, what the challenges it might face, the technical difficulties, and things like that. And which would potentially then speak to the triumph that it is. No. We just got a very, very basic puff piece based, I believe, on press releases. And you know, the usual comments by all those involved, which is to say not very much. But now it's come out that oh my goodness. Oh, there we go. One David Small, no relation to myself, I believe. Well, he has successfully won a lawsuit against Nikwan, and they have been ordered to pay Mr. Small $20 million plus for breach of contract for monies owed to him during his employment, which will just add to the strain on the company. This is after apparently the company had to pay an individual who had a similar matter, could have been in the States, that was to the tune of several $100,000 US. Basically, Nikwan couldn't pay Mr. Small while he was employed by Nikwan. Then they decided to part, and certain promises were made to pay him off, but they couldn't do that either. All the while, Mr. Small was operating under a non-compete clause, which means he was relying on the money that Nikwan would have given him, and that did not come through. And the judge basically said it seemed as though Nikwan After employing Mr. Small and there's no complaints on file, so when you have legitimate reasons, you know, employers, managers out there do have official records of complaints. Of course, anyway, there were no complaints on file, then all of a sudden in the matter, Nikon wants to complain about Mr. Small as a worker. More importantly, it seemed to the judge that Nikon was doing everything it could to not have to make payments and potentially not pay him at all. This highly touted project seems to be a disaster every which way it turns. And since he made promises to one of his former employees, and this is a high level, this is not the guy mopping the floor. Let me just get, this is a former vice president. He's asking the government, he's asking the courts to compel the special purpose company to somehow compel the NGC. He didn't sign a contract with the NGC, so this is one area where perhaps the government, I don't know if it's by accident or intentional, they put a layer of insulation and it seems to have been working out for us now, to compel a supply of gas to be given to him when he can't pay his debts for gas, he can't pay off people who he owes money to for working for Nikwan or being a part of the endeavor. Why was this? Did anybody do due diligence on this project before it was approved? And it's very hard not to think, right? I'm not saying that it is, but it's very hard not to think that there was a lot of preferential treatment, not necessarily outright corruption. I ain't even have to go that far. Just preferential treatment to try to get this project of Mr. Ainsley Gills off the ground and running. And you're already not apparently doing enough to cross your T's and dot your I's with regards to the financial side of things. Then you allow not one but two accidents to happen, one of which, the latter one, so one would think you would clean up your act after the first accident. This is what companies do. Successful companies, they can have accidents, but then they make sure they don't have accidents again. Because a company that tends to have repeated accidents in whatever field it's in, that causes the company to shut down, tends to not continue to operate for very long because they're just bad at their job. So you would think the wake-up call of the first accident would have precluded, you know, preventative measures, more stringent safety regulations, tighter processes, etc., etc. Nope, no, and somebody lost their life. And now, even after all that, he still wants to continue operating. I have no issue with the government saying, hey, you don't have clearance. We don't care what OSHA says. I have no issue with this. Because to some extent, it seems as though it's a mess that they had a hand in creating. So at the very least, clean it up. So, and finally, just before we welcome the ASP here to speak more about crime, although we might not be able to get into the budget side of it, at least not very much. Our economist, local economist, Dr. Manley Nats, I believe, no, Dr. Sajuan, has more or less predicted, look out for roadwork expenditure. Roadwork expenditure, Indira Sajuan, Dr. Indira Sajuan, which traditionally, infrastructure expenditure, that's basically how America potentially climbed out of the Great Depression with the New Deal. That's where you saw projects like the Hoover Dam being built. It allows some money to get to the lower class laborers, construction workers, you know, as well as people at higher levels of qualification. So you allow you provide jobs by doing infrastructure work. It's a very well tried and somewhat tested way to deal with economic hardships. If you could get these projects, help with development, help with expanding infrastructure, help with employment situations, help with getting money circulated into the economy. This, when the Minister of Works and Transports has also said extensive road paving to continue in the new fiscal year. Because, you know, we're about 2 years away, give or take, from the general. And you can't pave right after general. They'll forget by the next general. That's what politicians think, and to some extent, they're not wrong. That's the observable behavior. Now, one could question if America would have recovered as well as it did, if not for all of the war industrial spending of World War II. And that's not something that we could necessarily try to emulate. Even now, there's a lot of theories about the military-industrial complex and how good it is for the economy, how war is good for America's economy, because they have a military-industrial complex. They have a security police. They manufacture their things there. We don't. Expenditure into national security for us would just mean recurring expenditures that won't have anywhere near the trickle-down effect. But infrastructure spending, yes. The question is, do we have enough income to afford it? Because now we have crime, general economy, education, health, then a whole sorts of miscellaneous things like the fire service, which is part of the Ministry of National Security, not necessarily to do with crime fighting. The debt to TNTech, foreign debt. And now, public utilities, how could we forget those? Just in general, to reinvest into new infrastructure there. But now, works and transport, public utilities, big and small projects, but then there's also projects like new roadworks, like new overpasses, like new bridges, like the ferry service, new investment into the ports. Well, the airport technically started construction, but I don't know who's going to come out to visit that. The key thing, I think, is to have the right projects, not just to have projects. The right projects with regards to trying to do infrastructure spending will pay dividends down the line while providing for new jobs now and helping the economy now. It's still going to cost now. So it's an investment for the future. It has to be. And if the investment is poor, we might have the reverse situation. Instead of helping the economy out of tough times, dare I say, it could put it further into a hole. Because that's the story of TNT in a nutshell, of TNT's economy in a nutshell. Too much money was spent for nothing, and it puts us in a hole. And a lot of questions are coming up with regards to, well, the money spent on crime fighting. Dr. Marlene Atz, she's brought up those questions. What are the returns on that investment? Again, if it's private business, this is how businesses close down. Unfortunately, our country cannot just close down. We cannot close down TNT and move on to the next investment opportunity. That's not how a nation works. But the irony, of course, is private investors seemingly are much more discerning and careful, in some ways at least, than our local politicians. Remember, the rest of the Caribbean is doing more with less, whereas we seem to be doing less with more. And just take a peek at what Guyana is doing and notice the differences. We'll see. With regards to their language, we'll see if they can implement the differences. But they seem to be very cognizant of not repeating our mistakes. So she has a point. Dr. Sajawan has a point. Dr. Atz, with regards to questioning the return on investment on crime fighting, has a point. This budget will be very interesting to see. But I don't know if it'll be enough, because just paving roads, I don't know if that's big enough to really do what Dr. Atz is hoping to do. She thinks it is. If it's done, even how it's done, I question if it's done the most effective way. But we'll leave that there. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be speaking a bit more about crime, a lot less about the budget, with our media ambassador from the CTPS. Stay tuned. This is Talking About WESN HD. We'll be right back.
The Minister of Finance will present the national budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 on Monday, 2nd October. What will be done to lift our economy? Which sectors will get priority? Will there be an increase in social expenditure? Join host Keaton Shah and political analyst Derek Ramsamouch on AM Prime as we dissect and analyze fiscal year 2022-2023 and examine our financial future. And join WESN for its budget panel debate from 6:30 p.m. on Monday, 2nd October, where we engage in constructive conversations with the people that matter. The #1 morning show, AM Prime, Mondays to Fridays, 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
You gave us the inspiration to be first. We gave you the solutions that put you first. You walked with us side by side, and we continue to serve you with pride. First Citizens celebrates with you 30 years of achieving dreams, shaping success stories, and painting brighter futures together. And together, we'll accomplish so much more. First Citizens, together, 30 and beyond.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
From Maracas Bay to Arafita Avenue and Piaco, Richard's Bake and Shark brings the world's most popular fish sandwich closer to you. Open daily at all our locations.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if I seem kind of down, well, you know, another child was murdered, which leads us to the topic of the next conversation. And to have that conversation with me, of course, as always, we welcome our TTPS Media Ambassador, ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sean.
I mean,
it may be a good morning, but
it's very hard to be happy and chipper, and when this is the reality we face.
And this month, the TTPS have seen that a lot of incidents involving, and TTPS alone, Trinidad and Tobago, also a lot of incidents involving children for this entire month. We had the child that lost his life in the pool. We have the one that lost with the hot water, the hot food accidentally. Now we have a 13-year-old child. Then the most heinous of all is when we had nine individuals of our entire family that were shot in the Arima area, and 4 was fatally. 4 was a fatal, and out of the 4, a 10-year-old happened to be a 10-year-old in that. I'm just simply saying, as I said, it's not Trinidad and Tobago. This is outside of being a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Are we really becoming so cold-hearted, or are we accepting the fact that this is how we want to live every day?
I just want to say, just a disclaimer, the situation with the child who drowned and the child that had the accident with the cooking pot, that's not necessarily, we're not saying that that's violence against children, just that the ASP is looking towards, I guess that is slightly related, but not necessarily related to a certain, well, you don't want to see this happen, callousness.
But at the end of the day, sometimes we need to...
Or carelessness.
We need to take heed of our actions, right? We may not directly or indirectly put our children at harm, right? But our actions contributed, right? And do we really go about as parents and speak to our children the way that we should, or monitor our children that we should? Or also remember, we as the school term open back again, we see school fightings came up again, and there was a stabbing of a school boy. Now, these are conversations that we keep on having, but these are difficult conversations to be held, because you and I might be speaking from a parenting perspective, but we are different type of parents. How do we get persons to understand their roles and responsibilities as parents?
Well, also I think we grew up in different times compared to now. So it could be, I'm wondering if parents of today might be making the mistake of assuming it's like when they were kids. Because I might have gone to a prestige school, but I'm pretty sure I never heard of a situation where a policeman shows up, or an authority figure, a serious authority figure shows up, and children are still belligerent, and they have a don't care attitude, and it seems as though criminals, whether rightfully or wrongfully, because it's some mistake, it could be mistakenly, but they have the perception that the criminal justice system ain't working. We could get away with things, right? And in some cases they do, and in some cases they don't, to be fair. But the perception is there. And I do wonder if that perception has trickled down now to the kids. Meanwhile, parents and adults, they're still thinking it is like it was in 1985 or 1995, where, you know, a police officer show up in a school and all of a sudden everything just kind of stops.
But it's not like that. It's not like that anymore. Children are informed via social media. They're observing certain things that are taking place. They're on different social platforms that observing other youths and teenagers doing certain things. And when you see some of the attitudes, even by how society accepts certain things, it is no longer about the community or the village bringing up a child anymore. You are left alone. You, the parent, single parent, sometimes double parent, 2 parents in the household. But even if you have 2 parents in the household, they're not working together with each other. They're always daddy want the child to like me more than mommy want the child, so daddy doing more, daddy doing this or mommy doing this, and it's always a counterproductive situation in the house. And so the child dwells on that. But at the end of the day, there are the laws, right? There are the sexual offenses, the Children Act. That's just the laws, and we don't want to use those laws when only we have to use those laws if something seriously happened.
Yeah, we don't want to actually have to. The laws, that's after the fact.
Exactly.
That's after the victim is.
We have failed.
Yes.
And for me, I am saying once we enact those laws and try to keep those laws, it really means that we have failed those children.
Because the thing for me now, I've reached the point where it seems as though it's one thing if criminal gangs perceive the police as being unable to stop them, so they continue selling drugs to drug addicts and, you know, maybe doing racketeering, protection rackets and stuff like that, human trafficking, smuggling, whatever. But crimes against minors now, to be more specific, it seems as though it's become less and less of a taboo, I guess. Because, you know, to some extent in certain areas, there's like a certain code where you don't interfere with kids. But now we're kind of slowly losing that.
We crossing the line in terms of those type of violent crimes where they no longer care who they kill,
who they ends up in the crossfire,
right? Or who is the crossfire, who was it once intended target got killed, everybody else is collateral damage in the whole crime environment. But generally, what the police services continuously trying to help build through our, community policing, through our mentorship programs. We have counseling programs. We keep trying to share positive comments, and even through our community legal aid groups. Try to allow persons that the conflicts leads to a lot of things, and even conflicts between parents and a child.
Yeah. No, but the flip side is, what is the stereotype? It's not always true, right? What is the stereotypical response you get from the parents after a violent police confrontation where the police are trying to apprehend suspects and they open fire on the police and they end up getting shot? They were good boys, blah, 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 blah. Is it that we have allowed criminals, is this a wake-up call where, listen, now what your son doing is not just being involved in crime and hurting other criminals. Now the collateral damage, it might come back on you. No. Not just arrest, but the violence, it might come back on you. It come back on your little nephew, on your little niece, right? Because you don't know who they might hit targeting him. Whereas before, he was a good boy, he kept paid all my bills and he made sure I had food in my fridge. But your granddaughter might end up being the next victim in line, depending.
And exactly, and not to say anymore, because it's no longer about a good boy anymore. It's a good boy or good girl. Because we are seeing girls also get themselves in the level of violence that we see girls exhibiting from in school. There are a lot of social media videos circulating, and one that now coming to my attention is the one where a child was sitting and a young lady just came up and slapped the child, her student friend, well, I should say a classmate.
Yeah.
In the classroom. Now, as a parent, I would ask parents, you as a parent, you have seen that where your child physically assaulted another student in school. You as a parent, how are you going to react to that? What is your course of action? What have you been teaching a child at home that would have allowed certain things? Now, the flip side to all of this, and I'm saying, and I don't want anybody to be mistaken, parents are sometimes the last person to know what their children are doing.
Yeah.
Reason being, I'm of the opinion that sometimes we have children, but we are really not parents. We really don't be involved in our child's life.
Don't ask questions.
Right? Technically, in this day and age, we have to be what we call micromanage your child's life. You need to find out everything that's taking place, because there are a lot of influences that is new and unique in the 21st century.
Right, because we've heard at least one instance where there's concern about gangs recruiting from a primary school, much less from secondary schools.
And you even see it in the attitude and the behavior of children in school, where they do extorted money from children in school. You have heard reports about it. So if at that age, if at 9, 10 years you are escorted, right? Bullying, it is no longer bullying. Bullying is not part of it. They talk about extorted. You actually telling a child, you have to give me your money.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis. So the child now has to go to school with money to hand over. And if you're accustomed handing over $20, and by tomorrow, the next week is $30 you got to hand over.
Well, so there's two things that your line of the current direction the conversation is leading me to. One is the fact that going back to, well, it seems as though they're getting accustomed to dealing with other children. This is the children in school, the violence in school. Getting accustomed to dealing with other children a certain way. And my concern is, to some extent, as they become more accustomed, because in the past, if you see two men fighting in the street, it might just be two men settling their differences with a fight. Now in this day and age, you see two men fighting in the street, that might be a grudge that might lead with one of them or both of them ending up dead, right? So now, where children get involved in the fights, the implications could be twofold. It could, one, form a grudge, but that type of behavior, that type of learned behavior could just continue to expand and grow as they get older. But also I'm thinking, well, they grew up not caring about damage they did to other children. So when they're adults, would they care about victims who are children?
That is where this whole entire cycle continues. And there's so much that we need to do for the future of our children. The police service only can do a part of it. When it reaches the stage where the police have to get involved, I am of the opinion to already reach a critical, it reached the critical stage, because there's nothing much that we can do after that other than enforce the laws. We have to take it from the perspective, even from the primary school, when we observing when parents have observed certain type of behaviors in your child or attitude in your child, even in your household when you're speaking to your child, how they react. It is no longer about saying, he's a hardened child, but he needs some discipline, he don't listen. Something is going on, and we need to be self-aware. Just like we are speaking about personal protection on the outside about criminal elements, in your home, you need to be self-aware of how your family behaves, and if there's anything out of the ordinary that a senior child is doing.
Because, you see, people might be unnecessary at this point and thinking, oh, well, the police want to shift responsibility. But you're not talking about dealing with crime and preventing crime. You're talking about the run-up. You're talking about all the things that could happen within a household, within this environment that the child lives in, whether it's school, wherever they travel, wherever they go for recreation, wherever they live. And an interesting thing, my colleague who's on the show once a week as well, Camille Pascal, right? He said, well, look, you could do whatever you want with school, and you could bring police and whatever. You could do all these programs, whatever. But at some point, the child has to go back to their home life, where they live, and that environment. And, I mean, the parents are responsible for all of it, not always. But to some extent, the parents, well, that's where you're living. And you still have, no matter how difficult it is, a responsibility to safeguard the child from dangers, from bad or terrible influences. And we've reached the point where now, I guess, as you said, once the police needs to be involved, the situation is critical. I think the situation is so bad, we don't know where to start, because every area is legitimately an issue, but we have to realize at some point the authorities can't do everything.
And so true. So it is, I'm saying is that it is not about, I don't want parents to believe that it's about lack of responsibility, or we blaming parents that they are not responsible. But for me, I think it's about not who's responsible, but taking responsibility as a parent, as opposed to, I'm not responsible. yes, you may not be responsible for of every action of your child, but if you take responsibility of your child's action, having a knowledge of it afterwards, that is where it's going to take a next step. Because how do you, as a parent in this society now, if we continue to say, well, the child have this, the child was involved with this, they're going to want this friend and they're going to want that friend, they're leading down this road and I don't know nothing about this, but you're just making excuses. I'm saying as a parent, yes, you may not be fully responsible, but just step up as a parent. Show that you are a parent. Take responsibility. And taking responsibility means making the hard decisions at that point in time for your child's best interests.
And start when they're young. Don't wait until
yes,
they're already
from even in
sinking.
In primary school areas. So there are things that have going on in children's life that we're not aware of. And parents don't know. Most recently, there was a 12-year-old child that committed suicide. I mean, condolences to the family. I hope this doesn't bring up any harsh, any more trauma that the person is facing, but it's a reality that we have to face. Do we really know, or who around that child was aware that that child was under some serious stress, some trauma, to consider or was suicidal to commit suicide?
To know what to consider.
And that is what I'm saying. We need to find out. We can't just put our head in the sands anymore. Children are going through a lot of different stresses, a lot of trauma in the household, domestic violence in the household, abuse. A lot of things a child is going through. But we may see a child reacting and crying out,
acting out
in a violent manner, and the first thing we want to do is discipline,
or
not understanding or trying to understand what is causing my child to behave in this manner, what is not a normal.
And the acting out could even be, all of a sudden falling into the wrong crowd and conducting, joining a gang when they didn't seem to be the type.
And we have to learn. So as parents, I'm saying as parents, and I'm urging parents out there, don't say that I am not responsible.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for the actions of your family, your child, right? Acknowledge that, yes, I may have made a mistake, I made errors, because we are not perfect. But that is the time now to try to change or try to help your child, because by saying and making excuses for that child, then you're not helping that individual.
It's interesting. I want to take a break here, but I find it reminds me of an old saying, which is similar to how some people view leadership, right? And being a parent is kind of like being a leader, but also being a mentor, guardian, a teacher, etc., etc. And a leader, a good leader, when you are successful, you will praise others. And when there is, not so much success and failure, you might take the blame to protect your subordinates. Well, a parent, there's a similar saying. When the child is successful, the child, you heap praise on the child, but when the child is not successful in life, you send the blame to the parent.
And ironically, if that child is successful in whatever area, you are proud, all of a sudden you are a proud parent of this child. But if the child is not successful,
it seems like we want it to be the reverse. We are responsible for success, but the child is responsible for the failure.
Right. But on the reverse side, if the child does something wrong, I am not responsible. So you're not taking responsibility at that point in time.
Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines. Although just before we do that, there's one more thing that I want to get into with the ASP with regards to the murder rate in general and murders against children. Is this the wake-up call for some people to potentially do the right thing with regards to our civic duty when it comes to doing our part for crime fighting? Stay tuned to Talking Point on WSN. We'll be right back.
The Minister of Finance will present the national budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 on Monday, 2nd October. What will be done to lift our economy? Which sectors will get priority? Will there be an increase in social expenditure? Join host Keaton Shah and political analyst Derek Ramsamouch on AM Prime as we dissect and analyze fiscal year 2022-2023 and examine our financial future. And join WESN for its budget panel debate from 6:30 p.m. on Monday, 2nd October, where we engage in constructive conversations with the people that matter. The #1 morning show, AM Prime, Mondays to Fridays, 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
From Maracas Bay to Arafita Avenue and Piaco, Richard's Bake and Shark brings the world's most popular fish sandwich closer to you. Open daily at all our locations.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
All right, welcome back to Talking Point. This topic, there's some more that I want to say with regards to our civic responsibility and not allowing this situation to be the start of a trend that could do a lot more harm, that could defeat us, we the people here, our society. We do have to stand up for ourselves, not necessarily in vigilantism. There's another way. We'll get into that, but we do have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, all. Thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
So last week I was upset. Today, worse than that. So from the Office of the Prime Minister, it clearly states that the National Security Council is charged with the responsibility of monitoring matters relating to defense and national security. Cool. So we know we have Hines, who said his job is not to ensure people feel safe and secure. So what happens to the rest of them who make up the National Security Council? The Prime Minister, Amor, Emery Brown, who's so busy thinking of the Trinis in the New York floods, Stuart Young, Donna Cox. How the hell, I'm sure you could say hell on TV, right? How do they sleep at night? Because they say you can't sleep if you're hungry, but these children aren't even being allowed to sleep. It's like what? One a day, one a night, one a month. We started off the year with this cute little 6-year-old Kylie. In December, it was a 1-year-old named Nova. In October, it was a 3-year-old Nazim, right here on Diego Martin, Main Road. In September, a 1-year-old survived, and there are others in between. They call that collateral damage, okay. Forget the Venezuelan baby whose brains were blown out because they missed the engine. Now they're not missing, they're blowing them out in their sleep. After the 4 Peterkin, now you have Andrea Lallen, who could not even report the crime in peace. And we continue to have this inept, loquacious man who says criminals creep up on you. Look, I am so sick and fed up. I have reached my threshold in this country. Every morning I wake up and there's just a pit in my stomach, like if someone has died, because people have died. And people that I don't know. You know, it's just insane. That's all I could say because I'm getting really upset. Thanks,
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you, caller. And yeah, I know exactly how you feel. Now, apparently she was able to make a statement.
Yeah, she did.
The victim was able to make a statement before her death.
And, yeah, so
but
the matter is not finished.
Now, the thing is, because I not too long ago, I believe, I had your counterpart, ASP Arun, and he basically, we were talking about things like this. This actually came up, which is how I know it. I would not have known it otherwise. And one of the things he did say is that victims that come forward, at least with regards to his area, Special Victims Unit, this is not something that's happened. This might be the first time.
Yes, it is. It is. And you do normally get victims of sexual abuse coming forward directly. Right? It may be information through third parties.
Right.
But this is the first time that...
that somebody became a victim again in a different...
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Unfortunately.
Again, there's something I want to say about this and speak to the ASP about, but we do have another caller from San Fernando, so we don't want to keep him too long. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, ASP Ali.
Good morning, sir.
You know, I want to take aim this morning at the TTPS ability to have some discipline within the organization, and I say this in the sense that basically I have had cause to go to a minor traffic accident with a chap, and we went to a station. When we went to that station, we were told that was not the jurisdiction, even if it was the police station, it sent us to another station. And when we went to that other station, there was the gentleman that was taking the report refused. He told us we had to go back to the other station, even though that was the station in question that we should have in terms of the jurisdiction for the area. And he ended up in an argument with a senior officer in that station as to why he wasn't taking the report, because we needed to go back to that other station. And I was amazed that a junior officer had cause to behave that way with a senior officer. I was shocked. Well, I and the other gentleman, we were shocked. And it speaks to, I listen to your flagship program that you all have on television every day with Senior Superintendent Roger Alexander. And that has been a topic where he has been talking about that issue of indiscipline within the service. Where I talk about the frontline service, the counter service then. But my thing is, in a station, they have corporals, they have sergeants, they have inspectors. Some of them, some have seat superintendents coming in. So I can't understand the breakdown in that respect. That junior officers on the counter not listening to senior officers. It is ridiculous. That is one issue. The other issue is you all have a what you call it? You all have a within the ranks in the police service. You always hear. I have known a lot of police officers in my time, and you always hear about rogue officers within the ranks of the service from officers. And I am amazed when that conversation comes up in the public domain. The TTPS says, "Look, but we arrest this one and we doing this." But within the ranks, the officers inside there know who are the officers that need to be dealt with. And I can't see why you are not doing more internally to deal with this question. I'll listen off it. Thank you.
Well, I'll take a pass at that last bit first. I could understand. The problem is it gets very dicey. Those are the officers you also have to work with. And if you can't prove it 100%, the fallout from that will be a very big problem, because it's a different dynamic. This is not just an office where we do administration and paperwork and we sell paper clips or lawnmowers. You know, the job is very real, and the need for team building and trust is very real when potentially you and the person that's sitting across from you in the station might have to deal with somebody that's shooting an automatic firearm together. It's a life-threatening situation that you're in. So I understand what you're saying, but there's a catch. It's not quite that simple. It's even probably more complicated and complex and aggravating than the whole, well, you know who the gangsters are, you can't get them. If they can't get the gangsters, then trying to investigate police internally is even more complex because and to be fair though to your complaints, it's in part due to the environment that's allowed to persist, right? It grows over time and it becomes this thing that's harder and harder to control. But we have a caller from Claxton. I'll let the SB speak afterwards. Good morning, caller, you're on the air.
Morning, Sean. Morning to the officer there.
Morning, sir.
My take is, where the Black Lives Movement and when all the children been murdered? Remember we had a couple of the Black Lives Movement.
Yeah.
So what about these children? And we go, people who have no mercy on these children. But I show positive show that somebody knows who put on them work. People know.
Caller, I like what you said. We know we are considered the 7-day wonder, right?
People know what's going on.
No, after 7 days,
something, go and report it.
After 7 days,
we report what happened to her.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
Yeah.
It will put fear in our mind if somebody do something to go and report it to the station. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
I might take and give somebody a chance.
Thank you. Well, just before you comment on the previous caller before him, I'll just add to what you said. First of all, in TNT, yes, we have that issue. 7 days, it might be less than that sometimes. Half a week news cycle, if not 2 days, 1 day. But also with regards to BLM, I'll just say this. BLM does not protest with regards to gang violence and black on black crime. That's all I'm going to say. And of course in Trinidad, we're not going to have a lot of white police shootings in Trinidad.
But at the end of the day,
right? That's just the reality.
The issue here is not is the
it's not, but I'm just specifically to BLM.
For the thing. No, I mean, I just want to apologize to the caller earlier because that is not what the police service, the level of professionalism that we are trying to entrust in the police service. Because there's the open door policy and it matters not where an incident takes place. Once you go to any police station, the officer is supposed to take the report.
Kudos to the superior though for arguing the points, I would say at least.
And I wouldn't say that, and I wouldn't say kudos to the superior because there's no argument.
Well, true, fair enough.
Because in that conversation, I don't know what was the conversation of what transpired, but at the end of the day, no junior officer should
be able to argue.
The rules or the policies, whether or not it's your jurisdiction or not, it's an open door policy. The incident would have been, the report would have been taken, and the proper procedure to send the information to the relevant jurisdiction is how it's supposed to follow. That's as simple as it is. There's nothing else there's nothing else.
Right. And this talk back should not even be allowed.
It should not have because it's unprofessional conduct in a police environment.
But also, as a superior, I hate to say this, but I very much believe that there are some members of the TTPS that just view it like another URP or CPEP and not as serious of a job, with even potentially less productivity in some cases, and not a super serious job for what it is. You're dealing with very important things, whether it's civil or criminal. But we do have a call, I think, from Kuva. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
I want to say this. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I want to say this is that I'm very much upset of a lady that called about all the killings. The young lady was raped, and she went and she identified whatever it is, a hit was put on her, how they call it, and she died. Is the government responsible for that? Did the police know that was going to happen? All these things that people getting killed. You know, I find some of us need to be much calmer in their understanding because we are going through a serious crime position in the country. Okay, what about what she talk about the Coast Guard and the child? Have she ever been on a boat when they are about to transfer over to stop somebody who's doing something? Have she ever seen it? Only Jack Warner, who was a minister in national security, could tell you what the men get through on the boat, because he felt their pain because he was out there.
with them when they were doing something. He went with them to see. And he knew. So I know he could have understood how the shooting went on. But these who have nothing but the sea, making people, children, look like criminals and this. At times, it's time some of us shut up.
Well,
when they come here to say what they want to say without knowing the facts. I'm very much upset with how she put it over.
But caller,
because the police don't know nobody going and kill nobody. Okay?
But caller, I don't know.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, caller. I don't know with regards to what you were saying about the police should have known better. Argument, you can make an argument that once you provide evidence, it's very ineffectual to kill the witness or the accuser after the fact. In fact, it just makes the accused look more guilty. You try to silence the witness, and now that we know that a sworn statement, testimony could be used in court, it puts the defense at a disadvantage. So I would argue that from the police point of view, it's safer for the girl to make an accusation. But I just want to say this about the Coast Guard. Yes, I understand how boats work. That's why you don't take that shot. That's why you don't take that shot. That's why you don't do certain actions that potentially might cause grievous harm. That's why such shots are risky. And if you can't take the conditions, at the end of the day, somehow other nations do it. You sign up for the job. If the job is hard, you find another job. You don't say, oh, the job's too hard. Let's not do certain things. But we'll open fire on our boat in rocky seas, and then it's not our fault if we accidentally hit something that wasn't the engine. Then you don't take the shot. Then you find another way. Then you have proper procedure, guidelines to say when to take the shot, when it's responsible, when it's not. You've actually, in my opinion, disproved your own statement. I don't know. We have a caller, but I don't know if you want to just weigh in on that. No, you don't, right?
I wouldn't weigh on that.
Okay, yes. You're not Coast Guard. Yes. We have a caller from Dabadi. Good morning.
Leon.
Morning, morning.
Sean, morning. Morning, ESP.
Morning.
Sean, you know it is to be in a period outside there in the middle of the night with no light? Sean, you don't know what it is. I really, really disagree with your comments this morning.
But caller,
what does be happening outside there? You're frightened for your own life. You're frightened for your life. Far less the guys and them who face these AK-47 and thing on the high waters. I want to go back to SP Ashraf now.
Hold on. I can't let that comment stand. No, I've reached my limit. Caller, I don't care how much you're frightened for your own life. You can't just open up on anything that spooks you.
No, but you could be open to bullets.
I know, but unfortunately, there will be situations when you are dealing with any sort of police matter, because technically this is not a military matter. There will be situations where you will be open up to bullets. That is part of the job. You cannot shoot face and ask questions later in a non-military matter.
But Sean,
what they say when you're dead.
Caller, I think we got sidetracked to the comment that the caller made. The caller was identifying the number of children that was involved in incidents that children lost their life. And this is the conversation that we're having. Whether or not the issue with the Coast Guard, all right, that matter before the court. We're not discussing that. We're discussing the issues that there are a lot of children involved in situations that become collateral damages. Some are victims of crimes, and the whole issue right now is the children. How do we treat with certain situations that would avoid children becoming collateral damage in some situations or victims of some crimes? Right,
yeah,
that is a key situation.
That's a very important.
That is the most important thing right now.
The scenario, as far as I understand it, did not speak to a scenario where the Coast Guard was under threat of being shot at. They were trying to interdict a boat that had people on it, not drug smugglers who were armed. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they were trying to stop the engine by shooting at the engine. So they were able to see to some degree to identify the boat, where the engine was. It wasn't a case where a pirogue just jumped up and surprised them in the middle of the night and they opened fire in a panic, which they still cannot technically do.
It's rather not fair to the person who died. However, you know, that they were actually doing their job.
Well, I have things I could say about that, caller. I know what I understand why you said what you said, and some consideration does need to be the fact that yes, they were out there on patrol.
Let's agree to disagree on this one, Sean. But it's really difficult for anybody outside there, because I remember the days when Savary, who was a batch or two underneath me, went missing. And up to today, none of the reports clearly identify how Savary died. He was an A-class swimmer. You understand? So you have a lot of things happening in high waters that, you know, that we don't have answers for. But I really have compassion for the person, as SP Ashraf was saying, what we call collateral damage and children. That is really, really not acceptable in any situation. So I understand. But SP Ashraf, don't you all have air-conditioned offices and thing anymore in the police service?
Yes.
You wouldn't understand where we're going. Why the senior officers are afraid to put younger officers before charges internally? The San Fernando was talking about a case where not only that he should have been placed on an insubordination charge, is that he should have been not only taken me for the cold room, but he might have given me a slap or two. Listen, deep.
Caller?
Right, so I think we lost the call.
Okay, well, you could try to extrapolate where he was
I know what he's talking about is whether or not a disciplinary action could be taken against the officer. And I'm saying yes, but I cannot preempt what action the senior officer would have taken or may have taken. He may have taken the appropriate action by submitting his documentation, because there's a process of discipline within the police service. Right, so I cannot say that it did not happen. And sometimes we have to be very cautious, because sometimes somebody would come to the station, let's say they would have interacted with an individual, certain actions was that, and they reported the action. And they want to know what happened, why we didn't take this action, But remember, when we take disciplinary action within the police service, it's internal disciplinary action.
Yes.
It is not for the public to hear what we did about this officer, unless it has an implication.
Thank you.
To the general public.
Thank you.
In the and one of the recent example where we saw an officer behaved on unprofessional conduct in Port of Spain with respect to an incident, and he was suspended forthwith.
Right. Yeah.
That is a different thing, because he would have breached a different type of laws, and action was taken immediately.
Yeah, that's not like an internal work-related matter, because that's work-related at the end of the day.
And yes, the officers do in fact take disciplinary actions internally, and officers have been charged and been put before and have been disciplined.
I think,
but the thing about it is that having been disciplined, just like how our entire society is, sometimes you wonder whether or not it's sufficient to change an attitude.
The problem is, maybe this is things we're importing via the internet from America and stuff like that, right? But there's this sense of, customer service means when I complain about this poor behavior by the employee, right, they'll be disciplined. And usually the manager will say, well, we disciplined the employee, or we fired the employee, or something like that. But the implication, folks, is this is the police service. You can't necessarily do those things, because then all of a sudden people will figure out, well, if I complain a certain way, they will do a certain disciplinary action against the officer, and that could be a way to manipulate the system. So better to keep it behind closed doors.
We have rules and guidance that would allow certain actions to be taken to ensure that there's fairness, right? There's fairness across the board. So whether we may agree or disagree, right? Discipline actions could be taken. There are measures that we will put in place. But generally, holistically, the issue is not whether the discipline alone, is whether the type of interaction in the community, customer service attitude towards the general public is something of great concern to us.
Well, I want to thank you there for that and for coming on for the conversation. I want to thank all the viewers. I need to wrap up quick. We're more or less out of time, but a couple of things I want to say quick. One, to be fair to the Coast Guard, if you want to say that nighttime patrols aren't safe, they don't have the right equipment, they don't have proper procedure, that's fine. They should be trained, they should be equipped properly to do that. What are the procedures in order to conduct nighttime interdictions and patrols at sea? You know, those things, that's holding the leadership to account. But at the end of the day, the situation where the baby was killed, I don't know if having night vision goggles would have helped taking a reckless action or not. Now, the thing that I wanted to get to that we weren't able to get to, I'll try and be brief. Basically speaking, as much as the poor child who did do the right thing and made the accusation and gave a witness statement, she was potentially killed for that, which might not actually have done the accused any good, to be fair. It might have actually hit their case in more ways than one. But at what point are we going to realize, listen, if we just turn the other cheek, bury our heads in the sand like an ostrich, have a blind eye, whatever expression you want to use, this situation is not going to go away by itself because it has gone way beyond. And perhaps part of the reason why, yes, leadership, yes, the TTPS, yes, whatever. But what about people who are not willing to come up and give witness statements? I understand that this is an example of somebody facing consequences for doing the right thing. But there's a reason why it's called the right thing. And if we don't stand up, listen, everybody wants to be a vigilante or everybody wants to stand their ground and defend their own home. You, as a father, how are you going to defend your family when you're at work? You're going to be with them 24/7? You're going to be with them when they travel to school, when your wife travels to work or drives to work, right? When she picks up the kids, when she takes the kids back home, you haven't gotten home yet because you're still busy working. Or you might be out with friends or whatever. You're not there to watch them, all of them, 24/7. They're not in the same place. You can't lock them up in a fort to protect them with your one gun. That's not going to be the answer. You want to fight back against crime? Vigilantism is not going to help. It's just going to make the situation worse. But coming up, standing up, and being a witness to crimes that you could see yourself, including or especially, it should not be something that I have to add on. But especially when it's crimes that affects you or someone close to you. That shouldn't even be a qualifier, but somehow that's where I've reached. That's where I've reached. And to be honest, I've never been confronted with this question, and hopefully if something like this was put before me, if I'm challenged in this way, I will stand up to the occasion. But I don't know until that moment happens. But I will say this, it's something that I would encourage everybody to do because that's how you fight back. That's how you help the system get better. That's how you get society or help society get better with regards to this crime issue. You could shoot all the people that jump your wall all you want, right? That will just contribute to a further breakdown in law and order in society because things will have to be accounted for the wild, wild west that we want to turn TNT into. It's not going to work. Worse yet, at the end of the day, if you're sleeping, how are you going to use your gun to defend yourself? That should be one of the lessons learned from these heinous acts. They could come at all hours of the night and they will wait for you to be vulnerable. So much for standing your ground then. All right, I'm way over time. Thanks to all the callers, thanks to the ASP. This is Talking on WSN. Don't miss the budget presentation today and our analyst desk later on tonight at 6:30 here on WESN. We will see you Wednesday morning. Goodbye.
WESN.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the content capital.